Welcome to Community Watch. And today we're hearing the stories and tales of one of our own legends, Gary Mitchum Reeves. Stay with us. Community Watch starts now.
And welcome to Community Watch. Greg, how are you?
Fine, sir. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. We have today one of our most popular guests of the recent couple of years.
The legend.
The legend, yeah. Gary Mitchum Reeves is with us today. Mitchum, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good to see you fellas again.
I don't really, it doesn't surprise me a great deal, but, I know you are aware of it, Mitchum, but you clearly have some followers out there because, your shows on our YouTube channel, always get a lot of views.
That's good to know. I appreciate that.
And
I like the wild stuff, I guess.
I've had several people come up to me asking when you were going to be on again. So,
Cool.
So that's impressive to me, and we're always happy to have you on.
Well, I owe it to you guys. Thank you.
So, in case there are two or three people left who do not know you, Mitchum is a well-known both subject and star of podcasts that are still available. His case was featured in a season of Undisclosed. And that was the case where Mitchum was convicted of a murder that he has always claimed he did not commit. And that podcast seems to back that story up. And then he is also the star of his own podcast called Mitchum, which, if you have not heard, is really a wonderful podcast. It covers that same case, but also many other elements of Mitchum's life growing up, his time as a bootlegger, and other adventures about a time in Rome when things were a little, I guess I'm going to say, a little wilder than they are now. Would you say that's true?
Oh yeah, that's an understatement, man. It was a wild, wild west.
You, after your conviction, you spent a number of years in jail locally, and then in two different prisons elsewhere in the state. Is that right?
Well, actually three. I misquoted that last time. It was 3 different prisons. Let's see, Jackson, Reedsville, Carroll. 4, I'm sorry. 4 prisons.
All right. So Reedsville and Carrollton, and what are the other 2?
Started out in Jackson Diagnostic Center. Everybody starts out there when you get time. Kind of like boot camp, I guess. Then Reedsville, Carrollton, and then Rome.
Back in Rome.
Yeah. And Rome was really it's kind of hard to count it as a prison. It was a camp,
Yeah.
A lot different than the other places. Get that time.
And so what is the time period that we're talking about from your conviction to your to your release?
Well, I joined the prison system in August the 13th, 1974. That's when I was arrested. And then 1975, January was when, after a 5-hour trial and a drunk lawyer, I was found guilty, sentenced to life in prison in January 1975. Got out in 1981. So 7 years through the prison system.
And you had an administrative release. What was it?
Well, I got a pardon in I got out on parole in 1981. And as a rule, as a law, you did 7 years and you would be eligible for parole. But as a rule, with a life sentence, you didn't make parole the first time. You usually do about 15 years, maybe. And I got out the first time, but there's a whole nother story about how all that took place.
Right. And I do think in future shows, we're going to delve more into those circumstances. But today, we wanted to hear some stories about especially those two prisons, Reedsville and Carrollton, because in your podcast, in the Mitchum podcast, also in Undisclosed, but in the Mitchum podcast especially, you tell some pretty remarkable stories of your time in those places. And I don't know if it currently does, but Reedsville at the time had the reputation for being the prison for the most serious offenders.
It was one of the most violent prisons in the United States at that time. It was, in fact, a federal judge had ordered them to get the place straightened out, gave them so long to do so, or the federal were going to come in I got there right in the middle of that, with the riots and the killings and all of that stuff. It was hell on earth. Describe it.
Well, what aspects of that experience do you remember especially? I mean, I know it was a difficult time while you were there.
Yeah, well, when I first got there from Jackson and went to your dormitory, at that time I went to an open dormitory, and they had just integrated the place. The house man at that time, they had a house man. He wore a whistle around his neck, and he introduced himself to me and a couple other guys, and said, if you guys like to fight, you need to go ahead and catch another count. He raised his bunk up and showed us his shanks and knives. And if this don't take care of you, I'll blow the whistle for the man. And I said, man, I just want to bed and I just want to get through here the best I can. And that's just the kind of place it was. Of course, there was a man dying when I got there. He was down on his knees by his bunk. And I didn't realize he was dying until they rolled him out of there. Just a couple hours later, he died right then. That's the first thing you see when you first day you see a man die. I don't know the circumstances of why he was in the condition he was in, but he should have been in the hospital, not there on his bunk dying. It's just the way it was.
Well, even now, the little research I was able to do, it suggests that Reedsville is, the name of it now is Georgia State Prison.
Yeah.
And it is, by all indications, still overcrowded.
Yeah, probably worse now, I guess. And from what I understand, the gangs are bad in prisons now. you got the different gang violence that happens there now. Little different.
So, were you able to avoid trouble when you were there, or how did you protect yourself?
Well, the first thing you do is you be careful who you buddy up with. You don't want to buddy up with just anybody. He may be a good old boy, but if he's got enemies, they're going to become your enemies. And so I didn't, and you got to do that in a way where you don't act like you're trying to be better than anybody else. One thing I had going for me was the life I lived in Rome was pretty violent. I mean, it was street smarts, and I was used to violence. I lived around it every day. So the difference was there. I was just locked in with them. And, but I did have a man when we got there. You go in this meeting room, and I've forgotten to tell about this at one time. And the guy said that he was I'm not sure what his position was, counselor, maybe, I don't know. He said, you can serve the time or you can let the time serve you. And I caught that. I said, okay, I'm in here. The guards didn't put me in here. I don't have a beef with them, really. The prison system is not my enemy. My enemy was back in Floyd County at the court system. That's where my enemy was. So you don't cop an attitude with the guards and people like that. And so I took that to heart. I said, okay, I'm gonna try to let the time serve me best I can. Kept a low profile the best I could, and got through it for the year I was there.
So, oh, go ahead, Greg.
Say, working, I worked at Hayes for 2 years, and even when I worked at Hayes, Reedsville, Georgia State Prison was still the prison no one wanted to go to. That reputation still persists. That's where people go. Actually, there was a thing, so that's where people go to die. That was circulation amongst the correctional officers and the inmates. That's where people go to die. It was known for being so violent at that time. Yeah. So, that was long after Mr. Reeves had been there.
When I got to Jackson, they go by what your trade is. What do you do for a living on the free world? And I was a beer joint operator, ran moonshine, ran a liquor store, package store. I told the guy that, and he said, "Well, we don't have any openings for that, so you're gonna have to go through." I wish I'd have thought and told him, "But wait a minute, man! I drove a truck up to Detroit for a long time, running liquor up to Detroit, so I can drive a truck." But that's they were. I was headed to Reedsville. It don't matter what kind of living I had made in the free world. That judge ordered me sent there, man. They made sure of that. I wasn't supposed to come out of there alive, basically.
Well, were you given a job at Reedsville?
Oh yeah. I was given a job digging stumps in the swamps, cleaning the canals out that run into the swamps where it's snake infested, gathering the crops. Yeah, I was given a job, but everybody was given that job. So you're supposed to stay out there 6 months before you're eligible for a transfer. But I had made friends with the houseman and his assistant. I think I talked about Ironhead the last time. And so I knew there was a job coming up as a houseman, and that's where I put in for. And they helped me get that job. So I stayed an extra month just to get that job as a houseman. It was worth it.
And what were your duties?
Sweep floors, just clean the place up after the details, after all the people got out. And then basically you had the rest of the day just to kind of do what you wanted to do. The main thing was, to me, it was quiet. I enjoyed it because prison, one of the worst things, and Greg, you worked at one, this, is the noise. Good Lord, the noise. So it was worth it to have that quietness for a while during the day.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on our first break, so we'll be back with more stories from Mitchum. Don't go away. We'll be back after this.
I know you've had your moments of doubt and struggle, and I'm here to say I'm proud of you.
And although each one of us may take a different path, may we look back upon today as the moment we stepped into a larger world, a greater world.
You will pass this way but once. Do it right.
If ever there was a time to follow your passion and do something that matters to you, now is certainly that time.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We are in the middle of a conversation with Gary Mitchum Reeves, who is a podcast star from a season of Undisclosed, and also from his very own podcast, Mitchum, which you can find and should find, because there's some amazing stories there that you don't want to miss. And so we're happy to have him. And today we are hearing about some of his prison stories. And after you were at Reedsville for a time, you went to prison or in Carrollton.
Yes.
And were you surprised at all about that move, or?
Oh yeah. I wasn't expecting it at all. It all came about through the guy that came through Reedsville that I met and kind of looked after him. He was transferred to Carroll County and became the warden's secretary. And the only way you could get transferred with a life sentence in Reedsville, I was supposed to be there 5 years before I was eligible to put in for a transfer. But this guy, as I said, I kind of looked after the guy the best I could. And so when he got to Carrollton, he got in touch with my sister, and a warden had to request you from another county to get there. Well, I was being requested by the warden of Carroll County. He didn't know it, but he was requesting me. So I got transferred to Carroll County, and I was maximum security too. So Carroll County was a minimum security prison. It was like a road gang. If you watch Cool Hand Luke, the movie Cool Hand Luke, it kind of reminds you of Carroll County, what it was like at that time. They did a lot of paving roads, and but they put me in the kitchen, and the warden didn't want that either, but he wanted me out on the road. Once I got there, and the warden saw I was there, well, okay, but he's going out on the road gang. Well, they put me in the kitchen. So the warden walked in one day and he said, well, I guess they decided you could cook after all, couldn't they? I couldn't cook, but I could wash dishes. So yeah, it was a big change, and they changed my security to minimum there. And at that time in the prison system, if you were minimum security and you become a statewide trustee, they put me in for a statewide trustee. I didn't know what all that meant at the time, but I learned what it meant was if you're a statewide trustee, then you were eligible to get leaves so many times a year, 2 or 3 times a year. You could get a 3-day pass. Family had to pick you up, had to bring you back at a certain time. And man, that was a good thing at that time for me. So that worked out real good. And I still had a driving license when I went to prison. Back then, I had a chauffeur license because I drove trucks. It's different now. So the state patrol barracks was next door, and my license hadn't expired yet. So I walked next door, got my license renewed, and still had a driving license. That was a good thing because there was a guard there named Boss John. Am I getting ahead of myself?
No, you're doing good. Keep going.
Boss John was he had one eye and he had a big stomach, man. This guy had big stomach guy. So everybody said, Boss John's gonna nail you. You get ready for Boss John. Well, the way the dining room was set up and the dormitories was upstairs, one on each side. But I lived downstairs with the kitchen people because we had to get up at 3:30 in the morning and start cooking stuff. So old Boss John, I saw him watching me. And so I got through with my work and came out of there and he jumped me, man, he cussed me. Ain't no man ever talked to me like that and not fight. But what you gonna do? You ain't gonna do nothing but take it. But the guy was the way he would do, and he cussed me out a lot. But the way he would apologize, he would come up to me after he cussed me out at night, and if everything was settled down, he said, "You gonna go to Wendy's and get you a Frosty?" Well, I got me a lot of Frosties, and he let me drive. So I got to drive the company truck, me and Boss John going to Wendy's and getting a Wendy's burger and a Frosty milkshake. And then wasn't long, my stomach got to looking kind of like Boss John's. That was one thing about Carroll County was they did feed you good. So I really had some good times. When you good times, you make the most of it. And it was a whole lot better than Reedsville. When I got there, I saw mustard and ketchup and salt and pepper on the tables and stuff like that. Man, that was something. You didn't have that in Reedsville. When you went to chow, you had to hold the table up to keep it from falling over, and you're trying to watch around you, make sure somebody's going to stab you in the back. But yeah, it was a lot different.
Well, in the kitchen at Carrollton, how does that work? Are you told what to make? Do the guys who work in the kitchen make that decision, or how does that work?
Well, they had a head cook. He was the head cook, and when I first got there, it did. I kind of settled in there pretty quick with them. And they had just different guys that did different things. I remember helping, they got me started, like I said, washing dishes. And I kind of graduated from that to helping make the cornbread. So I learned how to make, the problem is I learned how to cook a little bit, but I can't cook for just 2 or 3. I got to cook for a whole army. I can make a pot of chili, but it's got to feed about 100 people, So, and that's kind of how it happened. But they fed those guys. That's one thing about that warden. Carroll County had one commissioner, county commissioner, and the warden. They ran on the same ticket. And they would have they grew all their own stuff there. They had their own animals, their own beef. They had a walk-in cooler. Man, you could walk in that walk-in cooler and cut you off a side of steak after your job was done, and you could cook yourself a steak, whatever. I ate good there, too good. Learned how to make sausage there. And I learned that when a pig became a hog, he was put on death row. And they carried me out to the farm, and I could see all of that. So I learned a little bit about farming and cooking.
Now go ahead, Greg. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Mr. Reeves, that so you really gamed the system. Really seemed like at Reedsville and Carrollton.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I just tried to stay ahead of it, man. Just keep a low profile and get through it. I guess you could say that.
Yeah, because it seemed like the fate just allowed. Because when you said the warden asked for your transfer, and he didn't even know it. I'm just thinking a lot of things had to go right.
Well, Yeah, his secretary, the guy that worked for him, they had a guy that ran the prison. He was the manager. A guy was named Mr. Steed was his name. Real nice guy. And the warden, he was just in and out of there. You know, you didn't see him much. He was out politicking most of the time. So it kind of reminds you a little bit of Hogan's Heroes, maybe. And the guards there were pretty cool. Most of them were. Even Boss John, he cuss you out, but he was pretty cool.
It was minimum security.
Yeah, minimum security, big difference there.
Yeah. Now I don't remember if this was a story on your podcast, but you were telling me something about making, so was it sandwiches?
Yeah, well, like I said, they fed those guys real good. When the guys would come in to eat before they went out on detail, they go through the line. You get all you want to eat. You just had to eat it. You
Oh, Mitchum has frozen on us, but maybe he'll be back.
Well, Doc, you know,
Wait, I think he's back. Is it?
What happened? Did we go off the air?
You froze on us just for a second there,
Oh, okay.
but you're back now.
Okay. Okay. Here's what there was of the sack lunches thing. The guys ate good in the mornings and they ate good at night, but they were given sack lunches to take out on the detail. But when somebody was put in solitary, what you call the hole, the cells was behind the kitchen there. I mean, there was the doors was just bars that opened up the door, and then there were two cells back there. Well, they was supposed to get 3 meals a day like everybody else, but Boss John didn't want them having that. So we would slip them sandwiches back there in the back. They would throw a sock tied onto a string and slide it to the door. We'd fill it up with sandwiches and they'd pull it back to them. So they ate good even while they were in solitary confinement. But one had to watch for Boss John while the other one was sneaking the food to him. Because if Boss John would have caught us, we'd all been back in there in the cell. I don't think he'd have carried me to Wendy's that night.
oh no. Now, I met Gary, Mr. Reeves, you have some great stories, but we don't have much time. But did you ever fear for your life in prison?
In Reedsville, you feared for your life. I mean, you know, you just had to. Well, give an example. When I learned that I was being transferred, I stayed awake all night. I didn't go to sleep because I've seen people who were going to get transferred, but somebody would start something with them and maybe a fight. So yeah, they were jealous. So I sat up all night. I stayed awake all night till they come and told me to get on that Bluebird bus, and I didn't look back.
Well, we are out of time pretty much for this episode of Community Watch. If you have not heard Mitchum's podcast, it's just called Mitchum. Check that out. You will enjoy it. And I know we will have you back. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all out there for watching Community Watch. We will see you next time. Take care.